Workshop of Brilliant Light. To be exact, hard and normal mode Vulcan aren't as difficult for a free-to-play or light spender as you may think. As we have already covered the floor 25 and 30 in the last videos, today we are going to take a look at Vulcan. Now, this is the long form. If you're interested in the short version, there will be a quick guide. So, first of all, our build. What hunters are we using and why? Well, for the start, we are using Livora, Min and Malin for very specific reasons. So, there's the support. All of these three hunters give us specific buffs. So Malin obviously heals us, and then it grants us 60% attack and 60% less damage taken, which is pretty nice. Livora gives the enemy a debuff, which increases the damage taken by the enemy by 15%, and same goes for Min. He heals and applies a similar debuff which increases the damage taken by 50%. So we are essentially stacking debuffs on the enemy. Combining that with our weapons, which is in my case Moonshadow and Skadi, but you can also use something like the Plumflower Sword, or for more damage the Westwind instead of Skadi, or the Grimoire, depending. But I would advise to use a support weapon like Moonshadow or Plum, and a damage weapon like Skadi, the Grimoire and Westwind. Now, Moonshadow gives us a very specific buff. Every time we use the skill, we get a status effect on the enemies, full moon. And then when the status effect applies, when the effect of this weapon skill ends, the enemy takes 50% more damage and an additional 50% more dark damage for 3 seconds. And this also applies in my case for Shadow Step because I have it at A3. If you have it at A5, when the ability ends, you get an additional 15%. So before A5, you get 45% extra damage and an additional 45% extra dark damage. And at A5, you get a 60% extra damage with a 45% additional extra dark damage, which is why we use it. Plumflower, on the other hand, gives us buffs to our critical hit damage, our attack and critical hit rate. Then we just use our damage weapon. For skills, we are using Pulverize for more break and dealing damage in the break state, so when he breaks down. Daily quest if you struggle with surviving, or Assassin's Proficiency if you don't. Double-edged sword and Boss Slayer. If any of these aren't as good for you, you could change one of them out for weakness detection or for reawakening, because there is a specific trick we can use to not lose as much mana. And then we use Death Stance, the Earth Shock variety, for 30% increased in critical hit damage, and the Wind Armor Break Vacuum Wave for 12 seconds of 10% more damage taken by the enemy. And then for hunters, for shadows, we use Igris for the critical hit rate, 7%, Iron, which has a support skill which decreases the enemy's defense by 12%, and then Serbi, who has a support skill which increases the damage taken of the enemy by 5%. And there are 3 main tricks we use. So, first of all, our blessings. We have mostly ultimate skill damage. Now you can reset as long as you want the blessing stage. If you need more damage, more ultimate skill damage, just reset if you get more. So you can see mine is by far not maxed. I have 2 times 30 and 2 times 20 for 100% extra ultimate skill damage, and then whatever I got. So this is our first thing. Our main damage is the ult. Our second thing are a few tricks I'm going to use along the way. For those of you who enjoy it, there is going to be a fight without commentary at the end. So first of all, we want to shadow step as much as possible, because of course we want to have the decrease enemy defense buff as much as possible. And then we can just use our hunters for now, because at the start our main focus is on breaking. And only then later are we going to use the hunter specifically for their buffs. So just break him as fast as possible. Try dodging any hard abilities. And if you use Grimoire, this won't be a problem for you, but if you don't, have an eye on the fire stacks, as you can see, down, because if you get to 5 stacks, you get a whole bunch of damage and get stunned, and you don't want that. So now we are going to break him, use our shadows, use our hunters, then use our support weapon, which is Moon Shadow, the skill, and the ult. And we are going to stack our damage like this the most amount of times possible. Then we can say we took him down to 65% from 80 something in one hit with our ult. And this is the best weapon, the best method to beating Vulcan for free-to-play / light spender. And then, as you can see, this is our second trick, just auto attacking. For Sanct Wu, if you auto attack, you get mana back. I got stunned because of the 5 fire stacks. You get mana if you just auto attack without hitting anything, which is really good. Especially for us in this moment where he uses his ult, I say, the meteorite attack. And you can just auto attack while waiting for him to use that attack. And don't have any problems. So now we are going to wait till he gets down to 50%. As it does a strong attack, then we are going to save our hunters. Listen, just use Skadi for an iframe, unfortunate. And then we wanna ideally time our second ult with the skill. Once he dashes into the swabble, use your hunters, use your shadows, and try getting that ult off, like we did now. Moon Shadow, all hunters have applied, and then use the second ult. And now the real important part begins. You can see we did a whole lot of damage again. He's going to do his second ult, if you want to call it that. We're going to auto attack a bunch, because we want that extra mana. If with certain weapons like Moon Shadows, you can also walk against the stone here and auto attack, and you won't dash back and walk into fire. Now, in this phase, where you calls upon the firewall at both sides, you don't want to use Meilin. We want to save our Meilin, because later he is going to give himself a shield. Meilin can ignore or destroy shields instantly with her support or her one of her abilities. And this is why we are going to save her, so her cooldown is always up. Use the other hunters, that was not ideal. Use the other hunters like you want, but try not to die. So obviously we will try again. This was unlucky, I got hit 2 times in a row. And I will fast forward to the moment where we are in this late stage. So we are back in the last stage. And we are just going to try the same thing. Now in this stage he does a whole lot more damage, as you've seen before. So try and dodge as much as possible. Another advice that I could give is when he uses a dash, Vulcan, be careful when shadow stepping, as you may shadow step into his dash again, getting another hit, which can be avoided most of the time. And so he is going to use his shield at the 15% mark, so we want to get him down to that, which is right now. We are going to use the shield in a second. Then we are going to use a melee, destroying it instantly. We are going to apply all of our hunters, wait for the shadows. Use our shadows, shadow step, moon shadow, weapon skill, our skill, and then the last ult, and this ult should destroy them. If you are missing damage and are not able to do this, one thing I can advise you to do is changing up one of the hunters, ideally Libora, as you may also need the heal. For someone like Alicia, who does a whole bunch of damage. And as you've seen in this run, I didn't die. So I could have changed out the daily quest completion for a blessing with more damage. And this is the best way for free-to-plays or light spenders to beat Vulcan. Now, the second stage of Vulcan with the hunters shouldn't be a big of a problem if you have a high water or wind team with Mirai and the new Hansemi. The shadows are exactly the same. If you use the water team, however, I would advise you to change out equals for task, as Alicia deals a lot of damage with her core attack. It's one of the main damage sources, and this buff 35 damage is insane. And again, if you struggle, you can also change up your blessing, just reset the blessing stages a bunch of times. You can re-enter them as long as you want, as often as you want, reset them until you get higher ult damage. For example, I would reset the first one where I got 2 times 20%. And yeah, that's the guide. So at the end, I'm just gonna have another Vulcan fight with the hunters without any commentary, and there will be another video with the short guide, and there are 2 others before this for floor 25 and Serbi. So if you have trouble with these, just watch the other 2 videos. I hope you all enjoyed and have a nice time.